Hi guys, this is vf.miniatures Warhammer Tactics series, and today we'll talk about buying the Black Templars for your collection. I've thought about some good deals that the Games Workshop has for us collectors, and also about some units that aren't in any box set in particular, but that I would recommend to have for your Black Templars army. And I want to get the obvious things out of our way first. The Black Templars army set that came out a couple of months ago, its total value is $240. It contains one Redemptor Dreadnought, one 10-man Primaris Crusader squad, the new one Marshal, an equivalent of a captain in any other chapter, one Emperor's Champion, again the new model that was released with the new Black Templar supplement, the supplement itself, data cards and decals. I really like this set, and for a good reason. First of all, it has the Redemptor Dreadnought, which is obviously, and I've talked a lot about it in my previous videos, one of the best models that you can have for Space Marine army at the moment. And in addition to that, you have 3 extra new units that were just released, and it's always a pleasure to get some new models in a box set, especially when they aren't half bad either. The new Primaris Marshal is an equivalent of a Primaris Captain, but you can take a mastercrafted power axe on him instead of a sword, and he costs the same. It's just a new, cool Black Templar style model for your army. It's the same as with the lieutenants. It's 50 shades of Primaris characters, and you can pick and choose whichever one you want, but this one is obviously more stylistically relatable to the Black Templars. Next is the Emperor's Champion. I love this model. It's one of the best sculpts that Games Workshop have produced, I think, since the 2017 when they introduced the new Primaris lineup. I like almost everything about him. The pose, the rules, some of them, and the feel, the idea behind this model. The only thing that I hate about him is that you have to fill out the all-important HQ slot that is always very heavily contested with the Space Marines. So even though that having this model in your army is a great idea, and I think any Black Templars list should try and include this guy into it, and it will be a helpful addition, but you only have 3 slots for HQs in a battalion, which is the most popular way to run Space Marines usually, and 2 slots if you run a Vanguard or an Outrider or a Patrol. So you take 1 slot for your chaplain, 1 slot for your captain, and you're left with 1 slot. And what do you want to include there? Do you want to take another chaplain to buff your units, or do you want to take a guy that only is good at beating someone's face in, and to be honest, he won't kill that much himself? You are probably far better off taking someone who can beat the enemy himself and buff your units as well. But that's just my opinion, so there are some ways certainly to include this model and still have a very synergized force, so it's great to have in your collection. Now the 10-man Primaris squad. It's a new troops choice for your Black Templars that's only available if you are playing Black Templars, so you can't use them for any other chapters, obviously. I like them because you can buff them up pretty well with your litanies, Litany of Divine Protection, Psalm of Remorseless Persecution and stuff like that, and make them relatively hard to kill, especially with the oath of upholding the honor of the Emperor with the 5-up-in-1 and the mini transhuman. But the best thing about them is the price. They cost 180 points for 10 guys, which is 18 points per model, which is less than the Assault Intercessors even. And the Assault Intercessors are the cheapest Primaris troops that the Space Marine Codex has to offer. Obviously, you also get the limited edition of the Black Templars Codex supplement. It's an awesome book. I have one myself. The cover of it is soft to the touch, which is something that you won't expect from the Black Templars Tome of Knowledge, but hey, who am I to judge? And the data cards with the decals are also very much appreciated. So yeah, it's a great army set, and I think you are very much in for a good deal if you buy it, and you can find it relatively easily nowadays on eBay for around $150, which is a $90 discount for you. Next up is the Combat Patrol Black Templars, which is also going to set you back $150, and this one only contains models, no books, no data cards. What you're gonna get is a 5-man Intercessor squad, a 10-man Primaris Crusader squad, 1 Marshal, 1 Impulsor, Black Templars upgrade kit, and the total price for all the contents is again $240. First of all, an obvious thing is that you're going to get a second Marshal, which is something that happens a lot when you buy kits from the Games Workshop. Sometimes they include models time and time again to save some money on stuff that probably won't be selling that great unless it's in a box set. But with conversions and with some kit bashing, you can make a great lieutenant from this model, you can make a good sword brother from this model, you can make a Blade Guard veteran from this model if you have a spare shield on your hands. So it's not that big of a deal. Now about the troops, the 5-man Intercessor squad, well, I guess it's not a great addition to the set. You always will have more Intercessors than you really need to have, unless you're just starting to collect, in which case this squad is very much useful for you. Having a second 10-man Primaris Crusader squad, if you have already bought the army set from the Black Templars, is a good thing, because you can make a 20-man Primaris Crusader squad out of these two squads if you manage to find another initiate model, which is basically any Intercessor. And this way you will get the only 20-man Primaris squad in the game, which is something that I think is a good thing in and of itself. Now the Impulsor, I think it's a great model, I like very much how it looks, but it's very much overcosted. You're paying 30 points on top of what a Rhino costs for basically the same thing. Plus the mechanic of losing models on ones when the transport is destroyed is, I think, very much outdated, especially for the elite armies like Space Marines, Custodes, and so on. So let's wait until the chapter-proof 2022 and perhaps the Impulsors will again see some play. However, for the young collectors out there, this is not a thing to worry about, because the datasheets and the characteristics of the models are constantly changing in Warhammer 40k. It's a thing that happens all the time. The models that were awful back 2 months ago are awesome now and everyone wants them, and a year passes and these models are again back on the shelves. So don't worry about that. Think about what you like, and I think that Impulsor is a very likable sort of vehicle. Now the Black Templars upgrade kit. I think it's one of the best upgrade kits that Games Workshop have produced through the years, and it's certainly something that will help to turn your typical mundane Space Marine units into a true Crusade force. And I adore that they have included the versions of the relics that are in the book, and you can find an Aurelian Shroud there, the Crusader Helm and stuff like that. And I think it's a great idea, and it's really valuable, and it will look wonderful on the tabletop. Now we're on to one of the best combat patrols that Games Workshop have produced to this date, is the Dark Angels combat patrol. You have the almighty Redemptor Dreadnought there, and we already talked about how important this model is for your Black Templars force. The Inceptors, that are a good universal fire support unit, a Primaris Chaplain. A Chaplain is always welcome in the crusading force of the Black Templars, another squad of Intercessors, and the Dark Angels upgrade kit. The total value of models in this combat patrol, excluding the upgrade kit, which is obviously not that useful for the Black Templars, is $180, which is a $40 discount, considering the $140 that this combat patrol costs on the Games Workshop web store. I like this set because it doesn't have a lot of useless models. Basically everything that it has is very useful for the Black Templars or any chapter of Space Marines for that matter. And even the upgrade sprue of the Dark Angels can be used, the sword can be used, the two heads that are included in this kit can also be used, and maybe those pouches, but probably you can find those in any of the Intercessors kits out there. The Redemptor Dreadnought is probably the best thing in this box. You can use it as a fire support platform and slowly marching up the board, eventually charging your opponents. It's probably the best all-in-one unit that the Space Marines can offer right now. Now it's time for the one and only the Indomitus box set that came out in the summer of 2020. I've already talked about this box in the Space Wolves What to Buy guide because it's one of the best sets that Games Workshop have ever produced for the Space Marines. It has a huge selection of models and most of them are extremely useful for the Black Templars. The Assault Intercessors are a great troops choice for the Black Templars. They are cheap, not as cheap as the Crusader squad, but you can take these in squads of 5, unlike the Crusader squad, minimum size of which is 10 models. The Eradicators, I think these guys don't need any introduction. They are an awesome heavy support choice that can deal with most or any of the heavy threats out there on the battlefield. And one of their biggest weaknesses, as I talked previously in one of my videos, was that they have no invulnerable save. And with the Uphold the Honor of the Emperor oath, they'll get the invulnerable save that they needed so much. Also, the Black Templars have this awesome strat that's called Devout Push that allows a unit to move 3 inches at the start of a fight phase. And you can move closer to the closest enemy unit or closer to the nearest objective. Which means that you can move with your Eradicators, shoot them, and then use, at the start of the fight phase, use the Devout Push strat to move them 3 inches behind the obscuring terrain, closer to an objective, which is something that wasn't available for any other chapters to this date. The Blade Guard Veterans, I've made a whole video about them because I love them so much. They are one of the best, I think, units in the Codex Space Marines. They were the first dedicated melee elite unit that the Space Marines have received because back in the day when the 8th edition was around, there were only aggressors to choose from in the elite slot to do the work up close in the fight phase. And honestly, the aggressors weren't a dedicated melee unit, they were a universal unit. They did the shooting and the fighting as well. So yeah, the Blade Guard were the first. The Uphold the Honor of the Emperor is also very useful on them because they get the permanent transhuman, and if you have a couple of squads of Blade Guard, you will be able to at least protect them from being wounded on 2s and protect one of the squads with the full transhuman stratagem, so they are only wounded on 4+. The Outriders, I really like the models. I don't like the price because 50 points for a bike is a little bit steep, even with the 5-up and 1, which is and tremendous help for them, even though I think that Outriders may not be the first choice for you. However, I would say that if you like these models and if you have some spare 150 points in your list, which is something that happens sometimes, you may want to try them because they are good for objective grabbing and harassing some small units that the opponent leaves unattended on a faraway objective. Now the Indomitus Captain. You are basically paying the 10 points that's the difference between a typical captain with the power sword and this model. You're paying 10 points for the 4-up shrug against mortal wounds and the 2-up save. Is it worth it or not? I'm not sure, especially considering that the Black Templars have already the 5-up shrug against mortal wounds, so the difference between the 4-up and the 5-up, it's a big one, but I'm not sure it costs 10 points. Now another Primaris Chaplain. I've already said that the Chaplains are something that you want to have a lot of in the Black Templars, as much as you can get your hands on, because there are litanies of the Devout, there are litanies from the basic Space Marine Codex, and both of them are great. You need the Canticle of Hate and the Exhortation of Rage from the basic Space Marine Codex, and the Litany of the Divine Protection, the Psalm of Remorse Persecution, and so on from the Black Templars supplement. So having 2 chaplains in your Black Templars force is not something very unusual. The Judiciary is not perhaps the best model in the Codex Space Marines. It has a useful fight last ability to apply to an enemy unit at the start of the fight phase within 3 inches, but I'm not sure he costs the 85 points that the Codex Space Marines asking for him. However, you can use this model for the conversions as a Blade Guard model, as practically anything else with a 40mm base in the Codex, so it's not a useless addition. The Primaris Lieutenant in the Indomitus box set is the best Lieutenant out there. In my opinion, you pay 15 points for a 4-up in 1, a 2-up save, having a master-crafted power sword and a cool Mortal Wound Volkite pistol. I think it's a total bargain. The Blade Guard Ancient is a strange model, I don't understand it. It costs 85 points and you get a typical banner ability to fight with one attack on the 4+ in the fight phase or shoot with your models on the 4+. I never understood this rule and I were never a fan of the Ancient as a model in a list. I always liked the models as an idea of a banner for your force, but never as a model to use in a game, especially a competitive one. The total value of the Space Marine half of the Indomitus box set is $395, which is awesome, and even if you subtract the cost of 3 character models that probably won't be used, and 20% for the models not being multi-part, you are still going to have a value of $256, which is almost a $100 discount. And that's why I really like the Indomitus set, and I love that you can still find those on eBay and for a very good price, somewhere around $150–160 US. Here are my further recommendations regarding collecting the Black Templars and what units I think are great to buy now. As I said earlier, this meta is constantly changing, and what's good now may be not that great a little bit later, but these are the units that are perfect for Black Templars at the moment. First, I recommend to buy 2 boxes of Vanguard Vets. These guys are very fast, especially with the Black Templars chapter tactic that allows them to reroll their advances. They're relatively hard to kill with their 4-up in 1 and 2-up save and 2 wounds, especially with Uphold the Honor of the Emperor and the Mini Transhuman, and they pack a punch in melee. So a perfect combination for the Black Templars, obviously. Always have magnets on them, otherwise you will be spending a lot of money on the boxes that you actually don't need, because nowadays the Lightning Claws are the best weapons. Tomorrow the Thunderhammers may become the best choice, or the Power Axes or the Power Swords, you never know. So just magnetize all the weapons that you have in the box and the shields as well. Now the Centurions. I've put an asterisk near them for a reason, because I think that these guys and the Soul Terminators, they do basically the same thing, but just slightly differently for the list. They're your main melee blobs, they should attract most of the enemy's firepower, and with the right buffs they should endure it. And hopefully charge something important and kill it later on. You can put them in the Land Raider Crusader and use the Shock and Awe stratagem to disembark after moving with the Land Raider. You won't be allowed to move again, but this will effectively give you an extra 5 inches to your charge, which is a lot. You can use the Assault Intercessors for the same reason, and some people will say that it's even more efficient, and probably they will be right, because you will have a 1-up save on your Terminators with the shields, and you will have a 4-up in 1. And yes, the Centurions, they have an extra wound on top of that, and toughness 5. But with the Uphold the Honor of the Emperor, the toughness 4 is not such a big problem anymore. But the best reason to run the Centurions or the Terminators with the Black Templars is the Relic Bearers rule. It basically allows you to buy an upgrade for your unit and put it on a model in a unit, on a sergeant or anything else, and make this model a super buffed semi-character, but inside a squad of Terminators or Centurions. For example, you can make your sergeant of the Terminators have 4 wounds and put the icon of Hyman on him for 15 points and make him ignore AP1 and AP2. And if you have an apothecary in your army, you can keep reviving that sergeant and he will still have those relics and he will still be providing that ignoring AP1 and 2 for your guys with the 2-up save. Next are again the Redemptors. It's the 3rd time that I talk about them in this video. I recommend to buy 1 or 2 of them for your army, because you need 3 of those. It depends on how many of those you got from the Dark Angels Combat Patrol, and if you have bought the Black Templars army set or not. The Primaris Chaplain on bike. It's one of my favorite models that the Games Workshop have ever produced. I like the balls of this model, I like the feel, and it's a great model for you, the Black Templars, because it's a fast chaplain. If you put the Canticle of Hate on him and the Exhortation of Rage, it will be the ultimate support character that you can have, especially with the Benediction of Fury. He will also be able to stand up for himself in a fight. Next is AIRBRUSH. I love this model. It's an awesome sculpt, and having this kind of character in your army, it's like having the Gilliman with the Ultramarines. It feels special. It feels like you have some piece of history, of true deep lore on the tabletop. It's awesome, especially with the rules that the Halberd has. He's an absolute blender of a character and a buff center for your whole army, with an aura of rerolling once as captain, Rites of Battle, with the ability to give Chapter Master rerolls, full rerolls to hit on a unit within 6 of him, and an aura of +1 strength within 6 of him for the core units. Next is the Chaplain Grimaldus. He's an Uber Chaplain, he's a Master of Sanctity, so he recites 2 litanies per turn, and he does that on a 2+, like the typical Master of Sanctity with the Wise Orator Warlord trait. He also gives out an aura of 6+ Feel No Pain for your core units, which are your Dreadnoughts as well. So your Dreadnoughts with the Black Templars not only have a fire up in van from the oath of upholding the honor of the Emperor, but also have a 6+ Feel No Pain as the Iron Hands Dreadnought, for example. Another useful thing that Chaplain Grimaldus does is he gives out an aura of D3+3 advances, and in combination with the innate chapter tactic of the Black Templars that allows you to reroll advances and charges, it's practically guaranteed 5 or 6 advance on any unit that is within 6 of the Grimaldus when you roll the dice for the advance roll. And last but not least is the Primaris Apothecary. We've talked about this guy a lot in my previous videos. He'll be useful to revive the relic bearers that we've talked about earlier, and to heal characters, to give out a 6+ shrug aura on for perhaps another squad that is far away from Chaplain Grimaldus. So it's a great addition to your Black Templars army. And now my favorite part of all these videos are the units that aren't perhaps the best competitive choice now, but are very stylish and classy and something that any collector would want to have in his army, in this case of the Black Templars. First is the Land Raider Crusader. It's an iconic unit for the Black Templars, and with the Shock and Awe strat and the 5+ in ban from the Oath of Upholding the Honor of the Emperor, as I call it, it's a great addition to any list, in my opinion. The Invader ATVs, I like these models a lot. I think they look cool, even though they were a bit hated at the start of the 9th edition when they came out. They're fast, they're durable, especially with a 5+ in van, and they can really pack a punch with their multi-meltas and auto bolt rifles. The Eliminators, I like those models. I loved them since the Shadow Spear box set, and nowadays when they are so cheap, 75 points for a squad of 3 with bolt rifles, I think they're a great unit to hold a home objective for you, especially if you have decided to use the Vanguard detachment and don't want to spend a lot on your troops, as you don't need them with this detachment. The Aggressors, they've fallen out of favor very quickly with the 9th edition and the new prices that they received. They have lost their advance and shoot with no penalty ability. They have lost their ability to shoot twice, but still these models look great, and I think with the Black Templars and the ability to advance faster and further and more guaranteed advance rolls, I think that they can see some play in the future, especially if the price decreases like 20 or 25%. Next is the Ironclad Dreadnought. I love it. I love this model. I like that it has toughness 8, and I like how crazy it is in melee, but probably it was lacking that 5+ in 1 that now it has with the Black Templars. And I recommend to have this model in your collection. I don't think that it will see play regularly, but you can certainly use it if you have a spare elite slot. And last but not least are the Black Templars Sword Brethren. It's the new unit that was released with the Black Templars supplement. I don't understand these guys in terms of their current rules. They are like a version of the Blade Guard Vets, but with no 4-up inva, no 2-up save, no master crafted weapons. So what are they for? I don't really understand. They have a lot of attacks. Yes, they only have 2 wounds each, and it means that they will be very, very easy to kill, and they cost a lot more than the intercessors. They cost 25 points for a model with a power weapon. But these are some great looking models and they really feel like Black Templars. So if you like them, I recommend to have them in your collection for the future. So that's it guys, I hope this video was useful for you. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below and I'll see you next time.